A Gathering of Gargoyles by Meredith and Pierce. Chapter 13, The Lightbearers. The hillside was high, rising above the other slopes. Oceanus hung like a great cloudy eye in the heavens before them. Far below, beyond the trees, Ariel spotted the suzerain's villa, its white stone gleaming in the pale earthshine. Something stirred near the mouth of the cave. Aaron started and shrank back against Ariel. Roshka's hand went to his sash, though he wore no weapon. But Ariel recognized the snowy form, the long neck lifted, untucking the bill from beneath one wing. She flexed her wings. "Heron!" Ariel cried. "At last!" the heron sighed, rising. "I expected you hours since. Here is your staff." Ariel spotted a dark length of wood beneath the white bird's feet. She snatched it up with an astonished cry. So swiftly the other danced, getting out of the way. "Where?" Ariel began. The heron shrugged. "Your suzerain very carelessly left it unguarded. I thought you might have need of it." Ariel ran her fingers over the dark knotted wood. "How did you know where to wait for us?" The white bird fluffed her feathers, preened. "I am a messenger," she said, "and can follow any path that is. I can also find the beginning and end of any path. This is the nearest exit to the ways beneath the suzerain's villa. I knew you must emerge here, if you ever emerged." Ariel saw Aaron's expression sour. "How delightful to know you were so sure of our welfare." The heron turned and looked at her. "Well, you might have come in search..." The heron turned and looked at her. "Well, you might have come in search of us," cried Aaron. "You might..." "Underground?" the white bird exclaimed. "I am a heron, not a bat." The dark girl began to say something more, but Roshka moved between them. "Look!" Ariel followed the line of his arm. There was a commotion on the grounds of the villa below. Ariel saw guardsmen, figures running in the stillness of the night air, caught faintly shouts and cries. The heron tested her wings. "They seem to have discovered your escape," she said. "We had best be gone. He will be sending his huntsmen, I imagine, soon." Ariel heard a dull booming. It droned out the last of the white bird's words. She heard Roshka catch in his breath. "The gong," he whispered. "The gong of purrs." "What is that?" The prince did not turn. His voice was tight. "In bygone times it was used to summon the people to arms, or the suzerain home from the hunt, if some pressing message had arrived. But my uncle has for it another use. It is all he uses it for now." Ariel glanced at him. "To summon the dark angel." The heron launched into the air. "Come," she said, "we must away. I can show you paths hidden from the huntsmen, but not far from Ikarai, I fear." Aaron was tugging Ariel's arm. "Come," she bade her. "Ariel, come." Ariel stood only a moment more, watching the soldiers swarming the grounds below. They seemed so distant now, so small. She turned with the others then, as they followed the heron down the opposite hillside. They ran through starlight, through earthshine, through the shadows of the trees. The white bird glided ahead of them, low over the hills. Sometimes, far in the distance, Ariel thought she saw the lampwing fluttering. The heron guided them through hollows between hills, behind rises and along riverbeds where no water flowed, but always behind they heard followers, sometimes nearer, sometimes less near, horse hooves, the riders' shouts, horns calling one another through the trees. Once they crouched in a dry ravine, while a dozen riders thundered past. Once, far behind them, they saw two parties meet, one led by the suzerain upon his tall black steed. The heron was just leading them over a saddle between two hills. "There is no other path here," she said. "Hist! Quickly, do not stand against the sky." Then, turning, looking back, Ariel heard one of the riders cry out, saw him point toward them. The suzerain gave a shout, spurring his mount. The horsemen surged forward. Ariel bolted with the others. She could hear the horses plunging through the thick undergrowth after them. Her breath grew very short. Before long, they seemed to have lost their pursuers. Ariel thought she heard walling, strange yelping and bellying in the distance behind, but that noise too faded hastily away. She and the others ran on then, in silence, for as long as they could. Then they slept. Aaron kept watch. Then Roshka. When Ariel awoke a few hours later, they pressed on. She realized groggily that they had let her sleep. They stumbled on. The night rolled by. Sometimes the noise of huntsmen sounded again in the distance behind. They ran and slept only when they could run no more. They had no food or water now, but Rashka showed them certain stones in the dry river beds. There were not stones at all, but plants with smooth, waxy rinds that could be breached with rocks. They lived on those and what fruit they found. Abruptly, the land over which they traveled began to grow barren. Rashka explained that they had left the suzerain's private estates. "This is what the rest of Pirs looks like," the crown prince muttered, "since my uncle came to power." After that, they heard no further noise of pursuit, and Ariel prayed they had lost the huntsman for good. Nightshade was 3/4 past, when she glimpsed behind them, low in the sky, some of the stars winking out. Little patches vanished, reappeared, a blot of darkness moving against the sky. Ariel's blood stopped in her veins. She remembered another time she had seen a dark angel, standing upon the high steeps of terrain. She had watched him far in the distance over the white plain of Avaric, blotting the stars as he moved across them, coming to bear her away. Ariel turned to Rashka, the breath catching in her throat. She reached to take his arm, struggled to speak, but then Aaron took hold of Ariel's arm suddenly, murmured, "Look." She said it so softly, with such absence of fear, that Ariel, startled, did not at first understand. Then she saw that the dark girl was gazing ahead, not behind. Before them, the horizon was alighting. They had just crested a hill. A broad, steep-sided valley opened before them, winding away into the distance ahead, filling all the valley from side to side. Flowing away from them lay a river of moving stars. A star floated past her, drifting down toward its fellows. They were lampwings, Ariel realized, a few fluttering from the hills here and there to join the flood. There were thousands of them, 1,000,000 more, all flying, all alight in a vast airborne stream. Far in the distance, a great blaze was burning. Ariel could not see it, only its glare against the sky. It was towards this that the river of winged things was streaming, following the valley's curves. "The Lightbearers!" cried Rashka, halting. "They have returned. There have been none in Pirs since the Seraph came." His words jarred Ariel. She too halted. She stared now, remembering. "So many," Aaron was murmuring. "So bright." Ariel cut her off. "The Dark Angel," she started, but even as she spoke, its cry tore the air. Aaron and Rashka wheeled. The heron took wing, sailing down into the stream of lampwings. She floated among them, white in their glow. "Quickly!" Ariel cried. "We must do the same!" She shoved Aaron ahead of her, down the hillside, heard Rashka following. Lampwings surrounded them as they reached the valley floor. Ariel looked back, but the winged stars obscured her view. She could not see where the Dark Angel was. She heard it scream suddenly, nearly upon them. Ariel cried out, flung herself flat to the ground. Ariel felt the wind of the Dark Angel's wings. The lampwings wheeled and darted, then flowed on, unperturbed. She had seen it, swooping high overhead, its face turned, one arm shielding its eyes from the lampwing's light. "It didn't," Aaron began, picking herself up. The fall had knocked the breath from her. "It went by." Ariel helped her. "It didn't see us," she said. "Dark angels have keen eyes in the dark, but they cannot bear the light." She stopped and pulled Rashka to his feet. "But come, hurry," she said. "We are safe only so long as we stay with the stream." They hurried on. "It did not see us," the prince murmured, "but somehow it must have known we are nearabouts." "Doth it hear us?" whispered Aaron. Ariel shook her head. "Perhaps, smell us, perhaps, or senses us by some other means we cannot know." They plodded on for hours. Ariel could not keep track. They dared not sleep. The heron skimmed ghost-like ahead of them. The Lightbearers floated and darted all around. The Dark Angel's scream severed the stillness occasionally before them, behind them, savage and shrill. Ariel passed her hand over her eyes. She had been half dozing as she trudged. "Look," she whispered, shaking Aaron. "Ahead of us. What is it?" The others roused themselves. Far ahead, the hills parted. Upon a steep jutting rise in the valley stood a great tower, its crown all ablaze with firelight. It was that blaze which threw the glow upon the sky, toward which the lampwings headed. "The torch," whispered Rashka. "The torch is lit." As they drew near, Ariel saw the tower was made of black stone. Its blaze would have rivaled Solstar. All the valley was awash with its light. They came to the outcropping and climbed the brief steep slope to the tower's base. All around the tower the lampwings swirled, circling one another in triplets and pairs. The heron alighted a little way off. Ariel and her companions sank down, exhausted, at the tower's foot. "But she said," Roshka was murmuring, "the peasant woman said it was not to be until the rightful heir." He passed his hand over his eyes suddenly, as if realizing how weary he was. They watched the dancing of the lampwings. They had not heard the vampire's scream since coming into the tower's light. Ariel guessed it could not bear such brightness and sighed, relieved they had lost it. Glancing at Aaron and Roshka, she saw they had dozed against the stone. Ariel took off her traveling cloak and laid it over Aaron, who shivered. She watched the dance, hardly aware how many hours passed. The lampwings began to drift apart. One by one they ceased to spiral about the tower, fluttered aimlessly and much more slowly. As though exhausted, the light of their wings began to dim. Ariel cried out then, for the lampwings were falling, floating slowly to the ground. A few settled on her shoulders, many others at her feet. The heron watched her from its perch upon the rocks. Ariel knelt, peering closer at the lampwings. They crept about the ground now like worms, for they had no legs. Their wings bobbed uselessly. Those that had landed on Ariel's shoulders cast themselves off again, fluttering to earth. Each dug a depression in the dirt, and there it lay, struggling slowly until it had laid a pearl the size of a chick seed on the ground. And then each gradually ceased to move. The light of their wings went out. Ariel felt upon her shoulder a stirring, saw a lampwing there moving feebly. She made to brush it off so that it might flutter to the ground as the others had done, but it clung to her without legs by some means she could not fathom. She took it gently into her hands. Its body was yielding like the supplest glove. Its wings were velvety and slightly warm, rubbing off a silver dust upon her fingers. The lampwing undulated, turning over and over in her upturned hands. She saw a pearl upon her palm. "Are you my dust shrimp?" she asked it softly. The tiny creature was hardly moving. Its wings darkened, began to cool. Ariel cupped her hands, breathing upon it, tried to warm it, but its body stiffened, and at last grew still. One brittle wing broke off in her hands. Ariel's vision blurred. She had to blink. She set the little thing upon the ground. The pearl upon her palm glistened, while all around her the Lightbearers drifted to earth. She put the pearl away in her breast. Her head was singing. Her limbs trembled from lack of sleep. Roshka and Aaron were awake. She saw that presently, turning back to the tower, they blinked and stared as if puzzled they had slept. Aaron threw off Ariel's traveling cloak, stood stretching like a cat. Roshka yawned. Ariel turned away from the tower and started violently. "I have a shadow," she whimpered. Staring, it lay like a black swatch upon the ground. "I have a shadow in this light." She turned back to Aaron and Roshka. The prince was stretching now. "I have a shadow," she cried. Aaron looked up, began to speak. Then she gasped suddenly. She cried out, gazing past Ariel, down the slope. Her one hand clutched at Roshka's arm. "Ariel! Ariel!" she cried. Ariel turned, looked, and felt her heart constrict to a pinprick within her breast. A stone obstructed her throat. Blood, cold as well water, trickled through her. She gazed, not even breathing. A figure stood in the darkness of her shadow at the bottom of the slope. And we will pause there.